Computer. Lights. Good morning, everybody, and happy Thursday to everyone. So today we're going to do a little bit more work with Airship 27, and we're going to, I've been working on a painting, and I'm kind of thinking of continuing on with it. So I started with having a painting for Airship 27 that I was working with, and I'm just going to keep going with that, I think, for today. It's also looks like it is indeed tax day. I hope that's, not a stressor for everybody this year. I mean, 2020 was kind of rough, wasn't it? It was really not one of our better years. So let's go on ahead and warm up and head over to the other area over there so that we can start warming up. So we'll head to the desk. Join me over here. So what we've got is our normal warm-ups for every day. You'll need a straight edge. You can use any straight edge you want. I happen to use my dad's scale, engineering scale. But you can use whatever you want. It doesn't have to be an engineering scale. You'll need a fine liner, though. And this is something that has a nice fine tip to it, like this guy, right? And you'll need a normal pencil. This is a 0.9 lead mechanical. You can use any pencil you want. And you'll need something round. Not like a cat. A cat is not something you need. But you can have a cat. Cats are a thing. If you need George, he's available because he's a pest. You're a pest. You know that, right? You're a pesty George. You have always been a pesty George. You're still a pesty George. So, when you do your work, you'll need these 4 things, give or take. If you don't have them, you can substitute them. You can substitute them with a cat. Obviously, I substitute all kinds of things with cats. George there. For example, you can substitute anything round for well, hello. So what we're going to do for these warm-ups is we're going to just take this ruler here, shoo George off because he's already splattered water on here. George is fascinated with running water. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Take your scale, or whichever one you want to do here, and you draw a line, not to the edge, but almost. We'll draw 2 of these, and then you'll draw 2 of them lengthwise, like this. And then we're going to take 2 more, and we're going to just start and end like that. A start and an end. We're going to take our French curve or whatever round thing, and we just want round lines, right? So we're going to do this. Round, 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 round. I wonder if it'll be fun someday. we go. Like so. Okay. Now the practice begins. I see you over there posting. Well, hello there, my dear friend Brent. So you're going to take the fine liner. You're going to lift your elbow off the table, lift your wrist off the table. You don't want to be down here like this. It limits our movement, but it also gets us kind of practicing to the idea of having a limber wrist. Okay, you can use your pinky to guide if you need, but then you're going to trace and back. 2, 4. 1, 2, 2, 4. And then we'll do the same thing for these long lines here. We'll go 1, 2, 2, 4. 1, 2, 2, 4. Okay. Now, for these little guys right here, you want to start here. Keep your eyes here, though. Don't look at the pen tip. Look here. We're doing a little game of can you find the destination without looking at your pen tip, right? Start here. Look there. There we go. And now we'll do some of these curves. Remember to keep your wrist limber. Just like this. There we go. And we'll put the date on it. It's tax day. All right. Let's go back over to the work area. Switch to Facebook. That's all right. You missed a show with Raphael and Colton and Pepper. We were all here. Everybody was here. So it was really kind of cool. But it's okay for you to miss them. It's okay for you to go to sleep. There's nothing wrong with that. Tomorrow, we're going to have Pepper back again. Pepper back. Anyway, so today we're working on... So I've been starting one of the covers for Airship 27, even though they have not approved it, because I figure either they will approve this painting and I will have a jump, or they won't approve this painting and I will have practiced. Either way, it's a win-win for me. So we're going to move over to the monitor here. It's hard to see what this looks like, but this is what the original sketch looks like for it. If you turn on this and do multiply, you can kind of see where it's headed. So there you go. So I'm going to try to get in some painting here today because I'm really trying to work hard on my painting skills because they aren't up to snuff. So we're going to go back in here to her face. I'm going to turn off this top layer. We're going to work in here because I'm finding some important things. For example, go up here. I'm going to go in my skin brush here. And what I'm really noticing is that I can't tell where her nose is because of the nature of this sort of area. So I want to come back through here like this and do this, and then I'll just fix it in. Right? There's no other way to get to Carnegie Hall other than to practice, practice, practice. You're absolutely right. I'm just going to go through here like so and get up onto this zone here It's giving me a little bit more of a purple, which is interesting. I had not expected that, but okay. Right, so we're just taking this color right here, and I keep sampling it in the half zone right here. So I keep sampling it right through this zone, and that gives me sort of a half color between the two. Come back through on the top color like this, and I can, oh, because it's a multiply, I want it in just normal. Like, why are we having problems with this? Right, and kind of blend this back through. What's going on with my brush? Is it in multiply mode or something? It's feeling very multiply-y. Anyway. There. And that makes it a little easier to see her nose now. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. I mean, this wasn't designed to be perfect. This was designed to just do the job, right? So at least we do have color gradient across here that looks decent. He uses this big soft brush to give just kind of color and range in here. I kind of like it because it does give kind of range inside there. All right, so next thing we're going to have to do is start working on these lips because those lips just look weird. That's why we're having a problem. This guy. We have a layer that I didn't see. Okay, let's put these two layers together. That'll help a lot. Excuse me. That'll help us a whole lot because that's not making this any better. Okay. Did you lose me? Am I still here? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Clink, clink. Okay. That's good. I got to, use my flare gun. Clink. Well, there's that. Clink. Keep the flare gun around for just these occasions. I mean, you're watching on your cell phone. I know that one. I hear that. Okay, let's talk about some of the stuff here. I'm having a hard time seeing like her nose and understanding where her nose is. So I clearly need to, right? Dad jokes. I clearly need to take this side of her face and make it real. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the larger skin and bring it all the way down here. And I'm going to talk about just describing this side of her face right here. We're in a different layer. So, but the idea here is just describing this side. of her face. And the reason I'm doing this, of course, is because I can't actually register this side of her face. I don't see it when we're looking at it. So I'm going to put in this side right here just to give it a plane, right? We're giving sort of a plane of view here. Right, and then this guy we can make a multiply, and we can drop it all the way down. And when we do this, it gives depth to one side of her face, right? And the cool part about this is we can come back around and do things like this. Which then illuminates a second light source or brings in a second light source from over here, which we can see in her eye. There's a second light source right over here. All right, so we're going to see that over here. So I'm going to smooth this out on this side of her face like that. And we'll come back into that at some point here. All right, I'm going to take this skin brush and just come in here and do that. There we go. And that looks a whole lot better from distance. And doesn't look so bad whenever I bring in the outer part of it too. And she does look like she's got a bigger nose than I think I really want. But this layer is at least telling me something about where her nose is. And the fact that it might be bowed back like that tells me a little bit more information on what's going on too. And she's Islander, and so I want to be able to break the ethnicity group, because the ethnicity group could be either African at this point in time or Islander. The Pacific Islanders, especially the South Pacific Islanders, are somewhere between that Asian look, the yellowish skin and the epicantral folds in the eyelids, and the African look, which has all of those traits minimalized, but more of a lower jaw and more of an established jawbone. But also, that's the difference between the hook on the nose, which is what we're after as well. So we're going to go through there and kind of work a little bit on this. One of the things I want to work on is her nose is not, that's not her nose. This is her nose. There we go. We'll come back around like this. This gives her nose more of a round look. And she's got the little adorable, like, button nose sort of thing going for her. Makes her even less of a threat, considering the character is a good thing. There we go. Okay. Now this shadow that's over here, right? This shadow is, it's got to come in a little, I think. I feel like it's going to come back around like so. Define a little bit more of this area right through here. Just enough to say her brow is folding in a little like so. We can bring this into this zone right here. Not all the way across because we don't want to. But if we do this, there, like so, we can come back out with it over like this. Yeah, let's use the soft brush on this. Let's get some of this going the soft way. Sort of highlight a little bit of the shadow going underneath her eyes. Asians usually have, yeah, it's a more youthful appearance. It's also an affectation of Pacific Islanders. Asians typically have a fold here. A lot of people theorize that back in the early days, way, hundreds of thousands of years ago, what had happened with Asians was that they had, you know what, I'm just going to come back around with this. What had happened with the Asians was that they had to have the extra eyelids put in to protect them from sea salt. And you'll actually see that with other people who spend their entire lives on the ocean in ships. It doesn't matter what racial backgrounding you have, you start to develop the epicantral folds over your eyes. And it's to protect from that sea spray. Salt doesn't do our eyes any good. So the whole point behind it is just that we've developed an adaptation to sea spray. And the Asians typically lived on sea diets back in those days. And so it was kind of clearer as to what was going on there. I'm going to make this not so straight like that. There we go. There we go. So now we can take these off right there and merge this down. So I'm pretty happy with that. There we go. Good. Now let's give her some color in those lips, because those lips are really, really, really pale, and they're flat, because I haven't been messing with them at all. I'll give some color to them. All right, go in here and put in some color. Let's see this one. We'll start with a pink, because we know that this has to go down into a pink level of some sort. So one of the things that's interesting about doing kind of a rose look. So the thing about lips is that this is called a lacrimal, right? Or not a lacrimal. This is called philtrum right here. This part right here. And they are green. Yeah, her lips were green. The philtrum is this bump between your nose. It's more pronounced in the Caucasians and less pronounced in Asians. So we have downplayed it a little bit here. Right? I'm going to make sure that all of the dots are covered here. Now, if you add more of what they call the Y peak or the peak on the lips, it starts to look more and more like looks more and more like an older lady, or it looks more and more like a Caucasian. So we want to keep this minimized. Africans can also sort of have that peak across the philtrum there, but Asians tend to not. It tends to go straight across. And you can tell that's one of the trigger sort of identifiers as to the different kind of subgroups that you find in Asia. Okay, so we're going to look at this from afar. Looks pretty okay. I want to kind of go back in and maybe do this. There we go. Just trim that down. Because once we've pulled the trigger on this guy, it's done. So once I merge this down, which is what I'm about to do so that I can start painting on it, we're done. So I want to make sure I've covered everything here. There we go. Give this just a little bit of roundness because her face is turned a little over to the side. I'm going ahead and bring this down just a little bit more because right now they're very dark. There we go. Right. I'm feeling a little like I'm trying to follow a contour that isn't right. Feeling kind of like I want more of this, like so. I feel like that looks more correct. That's what I'm thinking, so let's go for that. And we'll just leave this as part of her bottom lip there, because that looks more accurate. All right. As we've done before, we turn off those two, and we Control Shift and E, so that we can flatten the painting all at once, right? And here's the dark lines that are going to go in, and we stay on this section, and let's give this some life. We've already got color gradient going on through here now, so if we take the skin here and just keep operating that along like so, we'll end up with a good rounding effect, right? Because her lips are, of course, going to come in like this. The secret to lips is always in the roundness. We have two lobes on either side. There's two muscles on the bottom that group together like this, which give our lips a double lobe effect on the bottom. And then there's, in the front, there's a peak point, which comes down in the center. And that gives us a little bit of variation there too. So what I'm going to do here is just define along this route, right? That's what we're doing here. We're just defining along this route. Now I want something darker than this, so I'm going to go over here near the black. I'm going to have to be very careful because too much of this and it's going to not work. But if I come along the bottom along here and just tap in like this, just tap in a little. The same thing, of course, goes for the top lips as the bottom lips, right? And that is that we have sort of a double lobe up here as well. And for some people, especially women, because, of course, one of the things we highlight with women will always be their lips. The thing we're trying to kind of get here is this is a shelf going this way, with the bottom lip rolling out like this. So we've got a bottom lip that's rolled, which is giving us this effect right through here. Then we have a top lip that's just a plane pretty much. So we've got kind of going on here, right? So we're kind of doing that. We got this nice roll going along here. I'm going to go ahead and darken this in. And we're going to hit that tab point, and that's going to line up with that philtrum right here. So here's one lobe, here's the other lobe, just like that, right? So we're going to hit those two lobes and come down like so. Right, and then I'm going to take this guy and just trim it back. right? Just enough to make that feel right. We're going to remember that this side's going to be the side that the light's going to hit right over here. So we want to make sure that that's illuminated to some degree. And now she's got more life in those lips. And I'll take the highlight color. You can see these highlights up here. Do the same thing down here. We're going to take a pen for it. We're just going to do this. All right. It's going to give her just a little bit of gloss to indicate our two light sources. One going this way, and then one over here. So they match the light sources. Right? Okay. Now I'm going to add red coloring in. That's the next big step I want to do. Did I add that to the black? I did add that to the black. I didn't mean to add that to the black. Okay. That's my shine layer. Let's get that shine back in there. And we'll bring up, since I didn't bring this up right this before, when we do lips, the lips are like a curtain. If you imagine like a curtain, the skin goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it does that so that we can pucker the lips and extend the lips. Our mouth goes very wide and it goes narrow. So because of that, when we put in the white shine that represents the light on our lips, we want to be able to just, we dot it like this, right? And we do that because it's indicating sort of the streaks that are coming out there. We're going to do the same thing over here, right? And that's, then the top of your lip doesn't actually have those striations coming in, so it's not as obvious for that. But we're going to do this. And that's what gives it life, because we expect that from our pictures. We expect to see that. So this section here, this philtrum in the area right through there, that on her is going to be pretty flat, not as divoted in as ours. In a Caucasian, or that structure here is very defined. Okay. Now we've got quite a bit going on here. It looks nice. The one thing I am annoyed with is her hair. And I know you're like, what? Her hair? Well, I feel like one of the things we had done with her earlier was drop her hair down into her face a little bit more. And so I'm getting my G pen out here. And I'm going to start bringing her hair down more into her face. Like that. She looks a whole lot better with less forehead. So there we go, like more like that. There. The Google pen. Yep, it does. The lower hairline is another trigger for younger people. This jaw will look younger for her and everything too. Okay, back to what I was headed for. I wanted to head in and put some red in her face. So we're going to go pick up some serious pink over here. We're going to come into this area through here. And we're going to put pink in across her cheeks. That'll also give her youth, right? We'll put it in over here as well. We're going to put in some blue as well. We'll put in some pink into her. I feel like you're destroying things, George. Why are you destroying things? Where are you? I hear things falling over, but I have no idea where you are. Huh. I don't see cat ears anywhere. George is always sort of this. Yeah, these are not joking pinks. These are serious pinks. We are not joking around. Right. Now, the areas where a human has blood flow is through this area, right through here, through your lips, and then through this outside area, a little bit right through here, right? And that's where our major blood flow is. Major blood flow. So we're then going to take this, we're going to screen it in, or we're going to overlay. I'm not sure which. Overlay looks a little bit better, but goes kind of orange. But if we were to multiply, it goes very red. So we want to make sure that we're something. Soft light maybe might be good. I hear people use color dodge a lot, right? Color dodge does a great job of lightening stuff up. Glow dodge gives it sort of that different kind of thing. So this is where the benefit of doing digital painting comes in, because I can do a lot of these and just kind of mess with them. What are we going to do here? I mean, obviously, I'm going to bring it down quite a bit once I do, just because I only want the hint of color. I don't want, I don't know what he's doing. That pest, right? So I just want the hint of color through here. Just enough to make her look youthful and young, right? Because we're going to have to come back in here with blue in a minute. And I'll show you the blue areas of a face. By the way, if you ever do colorization of pictures, this is another thing that is important to know, right? So we're going to come back in here and kind of do this. I'm going to bring this back up through here too. We're just giving her color, right? I mean, we're just kind of taking some of this paleness out of her, giving her some color on these cheeks. She's young. I mean, she's very young, so it makes sense that there's some color, right? Nobody's here to distract the cat. What's going on? So we want to kind of bring in this color. Now I'm going to come in here with a larger brush. Let's get a larger brush, something more like this. I'm just going to touch back on it, right? And you can see that that's given more life to her. She's got a little bit more life going for her at this point, right? So the next thing we do, and we're going to have to fight between these two. So I'm going to rename this red. Okay. I'm going to rename this one blue. We have to be more careful with the blue. But our faces also have blue zones. Right through pretty much the middle of our face is a blue zone. So we're going to pick the opposite side of this and literally just spin the hue wheel from red to blue. And we're going to do that. And then we're going to come back in with my brush, my skin brush here. And it's right along this zone, right through here. This is where the skull is closest to our skin, right? And then right up through here, there's just not a lot of blood flow to this part, only this part. It's really weird. And then again, our chin comes up through there. right? So these are the areas that are generally considered to be, and we got to be very light on this one. I'm going to put it in there just enough to see it. I'm going to have to go kill George. I can tell already. I don't even know what he's doing. But whatever he's doing, it's driving me crazy. I'm going to come up through here, and I'm just going to smooth this out, right? I'm going to smooth this into this. And this gives her, not only does it give shape to what's going on. Okay, what are you doing, George? Where are you? Hang on real quick. Why are you there? Why are you back there? Could you not be back there, you little pest? Yes, you. Come here. Pestus Maximus. Okay. Somebody, and I won't name any names, and be careful with the unibrow. Somebody, and I won't name any names, is this guy right here. This guy. Whose guy? This guy. And for some reason, this guy is really into the idea of getting behind my bookshelves in a zone that's actually really hard to get to. And so here we are with him. I mean, you are aware that you're a pest, right? You know that. He knows that. He knows that, and he doesn't really care. I mean, he only marginally cares, I think. But, you know, here he is. Here he is being him. I'll put your butt there. Well, they're saying hi to you at least. Yeah, we need to really do something about your various claws because you are getting way too clawy, especially on your thumb. Yeah, he is a cat. He doesn't really care until I squirt him with water. Then he cares. He's all about caring at that point. Then you're all about caring, aren't you? Okay, back to work, slaves. Okay. Yep, this is return tissue through this area through here. You're right. That is exactly what's going on here. You've got quite a bit of return sort of tissues here. And so all I'm doing is just putting in sort of a bluish tint to her forehead, right through here, under her nose, across the philtrum, which always sounds like filthy. I don't know. And her chin. We're just going to blend it in like so. And then the other thing that happens is these deep recesses in our eyes, right? We're going to get those too. And it's one of the reasons why women tend to eyeshadow this area is because it emphasizes. I could not stop. So my mom used to say emphasis, and I got to tell you, sometimes, it was very funny when she would say that, but now I have this problem with the word emphasis because I keep wanting to say emphasis. She would say, you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. There we go. Now putting in, exactly. these are these veins through here and arteries. These arteries specifically can dilate when you're embarrassed. And that's where you become flushed and where you have problems with stuff like that. So I'm going to bring some of this in too here. I'm just going to tap through here like this. I'm still out on the red, so we're going to do that. I'm going to bring this into a deeper red through here. Why are we erasing more? Oh, because we're on eraser. I feel like we're erasing, says Guy. We are erasing, says the program, just like you told us to do. We are going to come through here and just brush this out a little. The highlight on the cheek there. Exactly right, though, about the... Start there. Start there. Right? And that's more of an assessment of what's going on in her face through here, and less of assessment of what's sort of, we're trying to get a highlight through this, and it's more trying to get kind of that color going here on the side, just a little bit. And then we're going to make her nose pink. Just like that. There we go. Now she looks young and gives youth to her, gives some blood to her skin. She doesn't look so horribly old, I guess. I don't know. I don't want her to look old because she's not. I also don't want to, overreact on this a little too much, but let's put it in a little bit more, a little richer. There we go. Maybe I'll put some up here. There we go. Kind of mixing in here with the blue. Give it a little bit more of a warmer tone, though. Which makes me feel like I might have, the tone might be just a little. Good morning, Donald. Good to see you this morning. We are painting. Not successfully, we're just painting. Now, one of the other things I could do, and I've thought about this too, is going in and doing this in kind of a different matter or a different way. Like if I take, at this point, and turn off my highlights. So, take my highlights and black ink like this. I turn those two off, and then I merge these together. So it's all one color again, because I do that from time to time. Now I've got kind of them all merged together. I'm going to try something else while we're here. Okay, so I'm going to take that out all together. Go back to my original drawings. Bring this up like this. I'm going to bring these drawings up a little bit more, right? So this is the original sketch. Now we're going to try a little bit different. I'm going to give something else. I'm going to give it a different try. First things first, I'm going to open, and I'm going to bring in, I've got a color code chart for skin tones, right? I have quite a few color tone charts that give me different sets of colors. And so we can start with a neutral tone that matches sort of what she looks like. like, let's go for, I feel like I'm looking here to see if there's someone who has this color tone, right? We can already see kind of where we're getting sort of a color tone palette that looks similar. Yeah, her eyes are totally different, which is funny because I traced them, so I don't know how but let's go ahead and pick this as the root tone. And let's give this a little bit of a different concept in here. Okay, so I'm going to not be on that level. Let's go here. We'll go here and we'll add a new layer. And this is a different attempt. We're just going to not be on the G pen there. We want this guy. I like this guy. I'm come through here like so. I'm just going to define this area. All right, we'll come through like this. I did notice, bringing up my door girl picture that I had done earlier, that with her, I had sort of much more of I don't like that pen. I don't know why. Oh, because I can't kind of switch there. It's all right. The door girl that I had done before, staring or thinking, she could be doing either. Anything could happen. When I talk about my original door girl, I'm wondering whether I feel like I haven't done as good since door girl. I feel like that was a very good painting, and I'm wondering whether I'm overthinking it. Right? So when I look at this picture here, this is a great painting, but I think I'm overthinking my painting style. Because this, even though it took forever for me to do, this still isn't super complicated painting, right? I have a mid-tone, highlight, some dark, you know what I mean? And so let's try something else. Instead of doing this, let's go for a new layer. And we'll go for color dodge, right? And if I take color dodge and I come in here and I take my skin brush, even when it's on big mode, right? I should get a lighter tone along the edge, right? Like so. Using the color dodge, I can get a much brighter tone than I'm kind of going, oh, okay, well that's our sort of, there's our look, right? Turn that off, take this here, and then we'll merge these together, and that merges that down. And the reason I do this merge thing together to merge it down is because then I can go back in here on this layer and I can pick this color and then come back through and kind of do this to settle it in. Right? And just do this and then bring to the front of our nose there and come around like so. And just like so. And now we've got a much cleaner look going for it, I feel like. Maybe. Bueller. Okay, so I'm going to add another layer in. And with this one, I'm going to try, what's the opposite of color dodge? I guess it's not glow dodge. It's going to be darken. Burn. So we'll take the color burn. I haven't changed my brush at all, right? But the color burn here then gives me the other side of her. Right? And the dodge and burn tools are things that people talk about a lot when they talk about the usage of Photoshop and how well Photoshop works, right? And we've got the same kind of thing going now. We've got sort of these medium tones and things like that. So we'll turn that off, merge those together. Now we've got kind of a burn going and a dodge on either side. We've got some variation now here that we can kind of take and push this back, right? Kind of in through here. And I can kind of bring this around a lot more. Again, with the, I feel like I might have been overthinking this a little too much, maybe. You know, maybe I was more worried about making it look right and stuff that I wasn't actually being artistic about this. And I feel like I might be, you know, let's just explore the contours of this face, right? Let's see what we get out of this. And that looks a lot more dynamic, interesting, a little bit more studied. Less, I don't know. But also, interestingly, looking at it here and then looking at it up there on the monitor, right up there, it's a lot redder up there than it is down here. I find that interesting. Which is okay. I can take now and take this guy and where is it? Because it's always something. Tonal correction, hue, saturation, and luminosity, right? I can drop the sat a little on it, right? And that's just a little bit better. I can also flip the hue towards green. No, blah, she's sick. It doesn't need a lot of tilt, but tilt towards there won't hurt us, right? It's time to take a quick break, gentlemen. Is her neck too bright? Yeah, we'll have to come back for that because I think you're right on that one. Her neck is just a little too bright. Okay, you know what it is. The lights have changed. It's time for us to stand up. Oh, yeah, everybody stand up and stretch. Even if you did go fetch George just a minute ago, you should always still stretch. Right? Shake everything out. Go for a quick walk right around the office here. Just make sure that all of your blood is flowing through your system here. You know, you want your blood going to your feet. Also, so the temperature is outside. I put in a screen here. This is so exciting. The previous owner of this house, 100 zillion years ago, had cats. And her cats clawed through that screen door so much that it only took a small amount of work for George or any other cat that we've ever had. Well, that's all right, dude. It's good to see you anyway. I mean, good to see you for just a second or two. I mean, either way, it's always good to see you, Raph. Yesterday, you were like, I was here, which is all right. today you're like, I won't be here. That's all right. Still love you. Anyway, so yesterday, one of my big jobs that I was trying to get was to install a new screen. It's actually really hard to put screens in. Amazingly so. So, yeah. Yeah, I know, Donald. It's cold outside. So, and I know my wife thinks I'm insane too. But my wife was born in California and raised in Hawaii. I, on the other hand, I mean, there's nothing we can do about this, right? I'm a Coloradan. It's nice outside. Let the air cycle through here. I mean, we got, it's not so bad. It's actually weirdly stagnant. The air in this office is weirdly stagnant. It's difficult to get it moving. I have a small box fan that sits in my door that intentionally blows air out. Otherwise, this room is not in the circulation for the house. And so it'll stay hot and it always is just a little too hot. Always just a little too hot. So, okay, back to work for us. Now I can hear. Yes, and you have to be really tough with the screens. I didn't realize how tough you have to be. I was like pressing to get that little wheel thing to get into the little groove to put the rubber grommet in. That was brutal. Okay, so back to our painting. Now that I've done some adjustment, I've got quite a bit more gradient that I can use now on this. So I'm going to take my skin tool here and come back around and just kind of put that through like this, and then kind of just flush through here a little bit, right? And that'll lighten this up, but still I want this dark area right here, because this is where her chin is, right? And we want that to sort of be dark. And like I said, she's got round, puffy cheeks, and the jaw is heart-shaped. Her face is going to be heart-shaped. We're just moving in with the genetics on this. So I'm going to go ahead and just darken out the bottom of her cheek there. I'm going to take this guy and just kind of push him out like this. I like this. And we'll talk about the planes of her face, right? Because like we got this plane right here. Right? That looks a lot better, I think. Now, I did not delete this at all. I'm just doing that and seeing whether this is... I feel like I might have gotten to... You know what? You can't see it because I'm not on the monitor. I'm just sitting here talking to you and say, this is really good work. Then you're like, uh-huh. So we haven't deleted this. We just put it on a different layer. I'm going to bring this back up. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this is a little bit better. It feels a little bit better, right? We'll come back in here and we'll just darken this part above her eye. We're going to have to come back through this zone anyway and darken it up. And we'll come back through like so. And again, I kind of like the idea of her kind of having this flat nose sort of effect going for her. And all of that coming around the front side. And she's got that little button nose going for her. We'll get in close here and take a look. I have two versions of the skin tool here. This one's smaller, and this is my finer tool, right? So I'm going to come back on the underside here because I really want to emphasize that she's got a nose, right? So we're going to come back under here like this, and then just do sort of this thing. We'll define that shape. And we're going to fix it. So, I mean, you're probably looking at it going, what'd you do? Right? Well, we're going to come back in, clean it up a little. And when we do, we're going to get a bigger bigger size, just a little bit bigger. We're going to come back underneath it like this. And we'll hit this guy, and then we'll come back down like so. And then that will go like this, and that'll make that all look very solid. And when we take this away, you now actually can see the shape of that face. Yeah, she's got a very, well, and she's Polynesian, or we've got her as a, it didn't say specifically, but it said she was a Pacific Islander of some sort. So we want the Polynesian nose. We're going to give her the picanthric folds on the eyes. But it's interesting where all those genetics go when you get down to this kind of genetic structure and things like that. Always fascinated by this. Humans are fascinating to me and have always been. I love, and I'm always like worried that my friends are going to think I'm so strange, because I'm always like, oh, your face is so cool. They're like, what does that mean? I'm like, sorry, but your face, it's so cool. Except for Raph, of course. Raph, I just say, your face. That's important. So, I'm not sure whether Raph is still here or not. I'd be kind of bummed if he was. That was a pretty good burn, and I'm like, oh man, won't be here, and I'll be like, damn it. But Raph, you were here just a second ago. Okay, so I'm giving a second highlight to this backside. She's got two lights that I've declared. I've got a key going right here, and then I've got a fill, and the fill is going to be moved back just slightly behind her, so it's going to be in this zone right over here, and that's going to bounce off of just the cheek line right here. If you look at it from, like, let's talk about this from like a different level. We can take and say, we've got, say, this guy. The key is, I'm going to make it green to make it identifiable, right? Because we want to make sure we see where these lights are. The key is this whole area right through here. And if you're looking at how it lights up her face, kind of look around the curves. When we come down to our eyebrows, the eyebrows pop out, but they pop out more on men than they do on women. Women, they fold in more. I think that probably comes from years and years and years of us headbutting each other. Not the women, just the men. Then with her, we're going to want these cheeks to be puffy. She's got the high cheeks that are indicative of more Asian and more Polynesian. So we're going to bring it up like this. You'll also see this in Native American, because Native American actually is an offshoot of Asian. And so you'll get that, and then we want to bring it through this nose like this. This is where the key is going to strike, right? So we'll go through there like so, come back around like so. This is one of those things why people ask me why I'm so fascinated with anthropology. I'm fascinated with anthropology because it describes and helps me work with my artwork, right? So if we also now talk about where we've got this key, and the key is coming in, and it's very bright, and let's put it here. Still got this like bright area that's all through this side. Right, so she's going to see this key. It's going to come along like this, even with her high cheekbones. Right, so there we go. That's where the key hits. Now the fill, we're going to do in red. The fill, this key light is, if you're looking at her face like this and she's looking sort of slightly to the side like this, the key light's going to be right over here, right? So it's hitting this side. So it's going to be right about here. It's going to cast a small amount of shadow on this side of the face. The fill, on the other hand, is almost at 90 degrees, if not slightly behind her. So we look at that and we're going to think about that. And that's going to be like right through here, right? And that's all you're going to get off of it is there. And then, of course, all along this neck, right like that. All right. What we might get is here, right? Because that's where the casting shadow comes around, like so. Right, so this is going to be off the edge of her face and right onto her nose. Now, as a photographer, if I've got a shadow forming there, I'm going to try to diffuse that light out so that it won't make a big bright spot right here, which really sucks. So, yep, Native American, Polynesian, Asian, all of those areas there have an edge to some degree. And it's going to be from an anthropological view, it's kind of creepy. Sorry. Because Asians and the Asian derivatives are also their telomeres don't go as far as the rest of us, so they don't age as fast, and so or they have longer telomeres. They don't age as fast, so they keep a youthful appearance for a lot longer. And I think that probably is diet somewhere along the line. But it's one of the reasons why you always hear the traditional, I can't tell how old she is because she's Asian. I can't tell how old she is because she's Native American, yada, yada, yada. It's because of a genetic setup of which they don't age in the same progression as the Caucasians do. Now, the truth of the matter is Africans don't either. So we're actually damaged. It's really what it boils down to. Caucasians have gotten sort of, and it's probably from the extended exposure to high altitude sunlight, which is what bleached our skin. But the high altitude sunlight also made it so that we are more susceptible to certain cancers. We're more susceptible to aging and weathering on our face, and things like that. And so what happens is that our telomeres sort of drop off in a much faster way. And so when they drop off, to us, we get adjusted, of course, because we live in our conclaves or enclaves or however you want to look at it. And when we look at Asians or Africans, which are the two other major, there are three major types of humans. When you look at the Asians or the Africans, they look more youthful. So you'll get 35-year-old women who look still closer to 18 or 19. And they will always progressively be that way. Now, at some point in time, because for us, the Caucasian women, they all start to drop off in a slow decline. Asians have an abrupt decline, and Africans have a very abrupt decline too. So they'll hit a point where, it's the old Obaba effect from Ranma, the Obaba who is like this tall and rides a staff. Because it's the joke is that, you look like you're 20, and then one day you wake up and you're this tall and wrinkly. And, you went to bed last night looking like you were 20. You woke up this morning looking like a raisin. And it, roughly true. And it all depends. And it's very difficult to tell the difference, which is fine. I mean, unless you are part of that culture and, embedded in the culture, it's easier. As soon as they hit 40, right? But they're like 16 until they hit 40. And then when they're 40, they're like 80. And you're like, what? And it's because we're acclimated to Caucasians, which has a fall off, a very long fall off. But the flip side to it is that to us, it seems like Asians and Africans have an abrupt fall off, which is not, of course, true. That's a complete, it's just an aspect of what that looks like if we multiply it. Like color burn, linear burn, maybe screen. That's kind of cool. So there are these cards, these Star Trek cards that have been coming out where they've been painting all of the main characters, and they use these ridiculous lighting colors. And at first I was like, oh, I hate this. But as time has gone on, I actually kind of like it. And so I'm kind of like, oh, look at this. This kind of looks like that same effect. It's like, it's got that highlighted color thing going for it. I could bring it down though and make it not so dramatic. Right, and go through here and just say the same thing. Like I said, it always fascinates me. No matter which way you put it, it fascinates me how human beings are built. We are an interesting and fascinating creature, but only because I am a human being. And so in some way, it's always about, me going, how are we constructed? What's going on here? I mean, I remember the time when I finally realized that Asians and Native Americans were the same thread going out. It's like, I can see it now. You can see it in the facial structure. You can see it in the bone structure, in the eyes and everything. And it's fascinating to me. All of this is fascinating. The thing that really fascinates me is this is all cosmetic. That's the thing that gets me, that just makes it so fascinating. In the end, there's no difference in the brain or how we think or how we operate or the kind of person that we are, the personalities. It's all cosmetic. It's all just the way we look. And it's adaptation, It could be, I mean, certainly they are more athletic and active and outdoorsy by cultures, but even when you have American Asians, that's the whole thing, right? American Asians still do the same thing. And they can be just as sedentary because, like I said, it's all cosmetic. It has nothing to do with our culture or who we are as people or our personalities or anything like that. It affects nothing but literally our outside looks. But and so you end up with American Asians who, just like the rest of us, get round and sit all the time and work on their computers all day long, and they still look like they're 16 up until they're 40. And that's really weird, right? The same effect still occurs. It's the same effect, but, because of culture and because they're Americans, they're hanging out doing their thing just like us. But I find that intriguing and fascinating. Certainly, obesity does weigh heavily, pun intended, on your body. I agree. No argument there on that. I'm certainly not going to argue that point. But I do find how humans work, things like that. Again, I think that it's fascinating. absolutely fascinating that this is all cosmetic, that our brains are not even remotely affected. I find that so fascinating. I actually kind of like these two color functions. Sure, every generation is going to have, by the nature of how we work as human beings, every generation has a different set of rules. Because each generation is going to take the previous generation's concepts and ideas and thoughts and buck them, throw them right out the door. I don't want to do that, as Gen Xers, we totally decided to 180 on the boomers, and the millennials then 180'd on us. And, and now the Zoomers, or whatever we call Gen Z, they're turning on the millennials, and that's the nature of the beast. So, that's nothing new. I kind of like this green-red thing going on here. I don't know what's going on with me today. I think the weather is changing on me, and so my sinuses have decided to revolt and tell me who's boss, and clearly that's not me. Okay, I'm going to go in here now on the main color, and I want to get these eyes figured out, right? So we're going to come in here, and we're going to take this small skin, and we're in this blue, or this green, comes from here. I'm going to flip this over to blue, and it's because our eyes are really kind of a blue-gray. So we're going to kind of go in here, and we're just going to define out where these eyes are. Right? Like so. And you don't want to do white. We always call these the whites of our eyes. But the truth is, you really don't want to do that. We're going to actually go down in color and come in here. I'm just going to put this in here as a shadow, right? And go up through here. We're going to just come back around the back side here as a shadow. Because in the end, when you look at our eyes, you can always say that they're the whites of our eyes. But the truth of the matter is that they're shadowed. They've got shadows coming in from the eyelashes. Things like that. So it looks a whole lot better if we don't do that way. Besides, what will happen when we come back in later on is we can add the highlight coming in from the light from outside. And that does this, and then that does this. And then we can add the highlights along like this, and that gives it a whole bunch of reality. Just adding those touches of white gives you just a little bit of reality to those eyes. This is called the scalea. That's this part of the eye. And we're working that right now. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to actually call this highlight. Okay, so we've done that. We're going to come back in and grab the skin brush, this little guy's skin brush, and come back over here. Now, I don't want to shadow too much on this side because we've got the highlight coming through there, but this gets shadowed in really good. Like so. There we go, just like this, and we'll come in underneath here a little bit. But I want to be careful not to highlight too much on this side because this is where the light actually is shining. So this light is hitting right there. So we're going to take this guy. And the other thing we're going to do now is we're going to go in and just get some brown, some really dark brown. We're going to come back in and we're just going to, that's green. Because we're on this layer. Let's turn off these weird lights because I can't see anything here. I'm going to take the guide and I'm going to drop it down a little so that I can see. Because if you see where we are with the guide, you can see that we kind of have like a little bit of a problem just kind of seeing what we're doing through this zone. So I'm going to come up over like so. And come into the eye like this. I'm on the wrong layer. Layer check. Right. There we go. All right, we'll come through here like so. All right. And we'll take this and we just come back through and make it have a point, right? What's the point? That's the point. Now her eye is in, right? With this, now we can actually see what we're doing sort of with this. So I'm going to add some definition in here and then I'm going to come back up and over. Youth makes our eyelashes stick out more like to the side. This is one of the reasons why women don't put extensions on their eyelashes. Because it makes them look more youthful. Most everything women do for makeup is designed to make them look more youthful. There we go. The truth is that I kind of want to go in with this brown under here to define sort of the nostrils as well. And I also want to take and use this brown right here to define the other side of this nose. And we're going to come back out and bring it a little bit lighter like so. There we go. So we're just defining the under shape here. The undershaper. And grabbing some of this just to kind of get just a little bit more under here. Right, I'm going to kind of go along the sides here. We're just grabbing some of this so we can kind of pull it through. Like so. And we can see now we've got much more of that nose defined. It looks a whole lot better, I think. I'm going to go ahead and grab her other eye. We're at it. Really? Really? Like, really? Okay, so did that come out the same color? I don't think it did. Grab. There we go. There we go. We'll move along. And like I said, youth, we extend out just a little bit more towards the outside edge. She's young. Okay. Turn off that real quick so that I can get in here and just tap in on this. And then there, that's what I want, is that point. And we'll do the same thing out here, tap in on that, and we get that point right there. And now the sadness begins because I'm out of coffee. Oh, that's so sad. Okay, let's turn on our guide because we already know where we want the eye to be. So we're going to come in through here like so. Now, one of the things that I was doing earlier was giving a gap along the bottom like this. I call that a water gap. Because really what we've got, of course, is that everybody's eyes are a little bit wet. And they do the wetness thing along the side, along the line down here on the bottom. So when we get back into just looking at this straight up, kind of looking for trying to get this line through here. Indicates sort of a water line along the bottom. I'm liking this version a whole lot better. I feel like we've gotten, even with the weird green and red, I might come back and fix that. But I feel like this is a much better than this, right? This seems to be cleaner, a little nicer, not quite as dramatic. And I feel like that's maybe has something a lot to do with how I am doing these. I'm not sure. But let's go on ahead and go in here and a couple of things I want to do. First, I'm going to take my skin brush. I'm going to go for a direct white, like a very bright white. And I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to tap along like right here and right there. Right, and that's just giving a highlight there. And then I'm going to come along the side here and do the same thing. Now I'm going to take the larger version of this. I'm going to tap back on it. Right. And come back in here. Actually, I'm going to need to bring that brush down. Get a little bit more of a fine point in here, but I'm going to still tap back on it. Like so. There. And that will bring her nose out more. Right? Her nose is now popping out a lot more. The other thing I'm noticing is they don't look like, her eyes don't look like they're headed the same direction. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look at her eyes. We're going to fix some of this over here. Now, the least of which is there's no water gutter underneath this eye. I didn't put a water gutter in for it. So we'll put that in first. And we'll go back and tap it closed. And the second thing is you look at how much inside her eye goes with the outside of her eye. And I feel like that's literally just a handful of pixels and we're lined up. Right? And it has everything to do with where those eyes are aimed. And I feel like we need to come back in just a hair with this guy. Now looking at both eyes, they seem to line up better. Now they're lined up better. All right. Next things next. I'm going to take the big skin brush. Big skin. Like there. I go along here. I'm going to just bring in this eyebrow. Right? I'm going to come along here and I'm going to bring down this eyelid. And going a little bit smaller, like so. Now she should be looking straight at us. So her focal point is going to be us specifically. So when you have the nose that goes in like this, it has a pivot point that comes up to the top right here into this zone. And so that'll give her, we want that pivot point up there. So we want this sort of bump like that. Right? I'm going to bring that in, and we still look good and solid. We haven't added her eyebrows yet. We're just trying to define the shape of that nose, which comes in like so. Right? There we go. That's probably a little too much. It's all right. It's all right. It's all good. We haven't destroyed anything yet. There we go. A little bit more of a slope in that nose. I'm going to bring this up like this too. There we go. Much better. So, all right. We've gotten those in. The eyebrows are going to change the dynamic of what she's doing all the time. So once we put in the eyebrows, things are going to change on her quite a bit. We're going to have quite a bit of an altered look going for her. So let's go ahead and put those eyebrows in. First, let's turn this off. Snag that brown. Now we'll turn that back on. All right. Now, I'm liking sort of the softness of things, so I'm going to go for this, still that brush, but I'm going to bring it down. And this, I'll just keep flicking that, flick, just give it a little bit of a flick. And when I do, that gives just enough that this looks like hair kind of heading out that way. And we'll come back in and fix it and just tap through it again and we'll bring it through. But for right now, we're just going to flick like this. There we go. Now with eyebrows in, she looks like a person forming. Look at that. Look at that. Person forming. Yeah. You know what's strange? I don't think that this eye, I feel like this eye might not be looking at us. This eye is, and this one isn't. So I'm still fighting with the eyes. The eyes have it. So let's go back in. Let's do a couple of things. One, tap in just a little bit more with the gray right through here. Okay. This gives her eye a little less top room. And that'll help us get sort of that definition going for her. There we go. The second thing we can do is bring in this eyelash on this side. Because it's turning out, I do too, I like the skin and where it's going. It's turning out that this eye is still not targeting in on us, and this one is. So I'm going to bring this eye up like so, and make sure that it's like that. We're going to like so. There. It was a minor detail, but boy, it is very interesting how critical that detail was. So let's go ahead and do this and then this. We're going to take this and we're going to define underneath her eye. Like I said before, a thing about Asians and the Asian style of face is that they get these kind of pouches under their eyes, and it comes from the pacantharal folds. That's this fold on the top of the eyes that causes them to close so well and so tightly against seawater and sea spray. All right. There we go. And we'll get this line along the top here. Let me bring that down just a little bit like so. One of the reasons why we do so much we have to have models all the time and things like that in art classes is because you have to start to realize how things work in a human being and how they're adapting, and right. This is called a lacrimal, and it's the little divot in the center of the eye, right here. It's extraordinarily pink most of the time, especially in younger people, and it's big, right? It's a big area in younger people. In the older people, that lacrimal gets smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So we're going to go through here. The older you get, the more this lacrimal is small. Since she's older, we're going to kind of, I'm just decolorizing it a little bit there. There, just like that. The lacrimal is sort of a thing. If we bring up our highlights on this, the lacrimal is going to end up being highlit as well. We're going to go ahead and clear what's in the, we're going to go ahead and ruin it. We're going to go ahead and clear what's already in the highlight section because I want to go back through and work on that. So when I take and I come in here with The highlights, I'm using a G pen, and the reason I use a G pen is that we want to establish dots that are very, very specific, right? So we have two light sources. The biggest one's probably on the left, though, so let's go on ahead and declare that. Our biggest one is this bright light source right here. Okay, so she's probably got, it's probably a square light of some sort. This is this biggest light source. And then over here is she's getting this reflection off of the bounce that's coming out over here. So we'll describe those lights and kind of hit this water line that I've been working on, right? And now she looks like she's got something real going on in her eyes, right? She looks alive. So we'll go over here and do the same thing over here. We're going to remember that in this eye, this square light is much more apparent and clear. And this little light is going to be less apparent, right? And we'll put in the dots here and hit some of this water line, and then we'll put a dot in her lacrimal. And now we have this, right? I feel like this is a much better representation than we had before. I'm feeling like this is a lot clearer. I seem to just need to I need to remember to not work so damn hard, because I work it until I get to the point where it's just not as pretty, right? That's just not as solid, right? Given a choice between the two, that's a much better. I'm doing a lot better. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. This is a much better. And I only spent 2 hours on it so far, so it's a far, far, far better structure we've got going on here. I like this guy a lot better. So, okay, we have done that. Yeah, even especially if you look far away like this, it looks a lot cleaner, a lot less of a problem child. So, okay, we've done good. Let's go ahead and head back in real quick, and let's see if we can't. And if I put this black ink over it, that's not going to help any. Okay, so let's go in and add a new layer, and let's define her hair. Okay, because we need to kind of define her hair, but this time I'm going to define her hair as brown, and then we'll go back in with the black and work it a little bit, right? So we're going to come back in here, and I'm going to give this a bigger brush. I'm going to come back through and just give the big block here. Right, and this is just where we're going on this one. And like I said, I liked it more where her hair was lower. Gave more youth appearance to her. It's always better to go over the lines, your guides, if you're using digital, obviously, than it is to not. Because I can always, always, always come back with the eraser and just cut back in like this, right? And let's go back through. And we've already kind of messed it up a little. So let's have to come back around at some point here. There we go. There. So we can take the line out, and we're getting happy little mistakes. And now we're getting a good kind of derivative going of what's happening here. Right? We're going to take and tab that in, and we're going to come up here and just make sure we got my G pen, and we're going to bring its size back down. And now we're just going to bring that through. Right. So no frizz on this side though. And frizz out this way. Like that. The thing I love about Bob Ross is that he's absolutely right. Mistakes are critical. If you don't make mistakes, you'll never get better. And he was so big on mistakes, and I loved it. And especially when it comes to art, you're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. And there will always be mistakes. That's just the nature of the beast. Okay, now we can take with just this here, and we can take out all of the other lines, right? And all we've got is just the hair. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take the magic wand tool and select everything but the hair, right? Control-Shift-I puts it on the inside. So this is now the edited layer and not that. And now I'll go back in with black. And this is where I will take the skin brush, and I can just kind of do this number to it, right? Because we know that this part of it, right through here, is going to be this way. So we can kind of go through, and we're just going to, the outside edge of this, the edge that's not hit by light, that's what's going to be kind of in here. We'll kind of merge these together a little bit, take some of that area right there and kind of go on out. We're just adding chaos to this because her hair is chaotic, right? We're making it sort of chaotic here. I have 4 minutes left in the show, so we're just gonna we're just making it chaotic at this point and just giving it a pattern. There'll be more that we're going to do to this, but this is the pattern we're giving it at the moment. We especially want to make this area dark. That's the area where the hair has folded under and folded around, and there's not a lot of light going in there. But we do have to remember we have a key, and that key light's coming in through the top through here. So we're going to have to be able to come back through like so. But if we look at this, right, it now looks pretty good, right? That's not bad at all. Gives dimension. I went over yesterday. Yeah, I did go over yesterday, but you weren't here. So it gives dimension. And if I go in here with another layer, I'm going to add another raster layer on top of this. And with this layer, I come in with a color dodge. That's going to bring this up like through here, right, on this outside edge. Right? Well, let's not do it in brown. All right, there you go. That works. Come in here with like a color dodge and just kind of tap along the outside edges like so. Kind of hit like through here. It's giving dimension to her hair, like so. We'll bring it down just a little bit because her hair is still dark. All right. We'll go and we'll tap here. We'll hit this color dodge and we'll delete. And all I'm doing whenever I do that is that I'm trimming out what's gone over the lines, right? So sort of that going. And then we're going to hit the same thing except in reverse. We're going to add another layer in here. We're going to hit color burn. Right, and just get there. Okay, and when we hit color burn, we can burn in. With this one, we're going to burn in on the skin right down here. And there's actually kind of a reason we're doing this kind of treatment of this. And that is, she actually does right and wrong at the same time. Check me. Right? There's kind of a reason. She's got flame things going on for her at this point, so kind of tapping her kind of flame sort of effect going here. Flame broiled effect. Just saying. Make sure that this is trimmed in. Make sure this one's trimmed in. And then we hit deselect. What we can do now is kind of go back in with this color dodge. I really want to clean up some of this. And that way on the color dodge, what do you do? Go into the burn. Anyway, what was I right and wrong about on Star Trek? I didn't read the comments. I make one of these shows every day, and so I can't ever tell which one's coming up again on my news feed, because sometimes they come up and it's like from 6 weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. I don't know what you're after. So, what was I right and or wrong about in Star Trek? Hope it wasn't about Star Trek 2. Because that part is still sort of a thing. Right? Like I said, looking at you with the half-lidded eyes. There are really only two versions of Star Trek II. The ABC cut is a recut. That's not a version of it. That's just a recut. It can't be considered a version. Okay, I'm going to take that out and then make sure everything is there, and then we're just going to merge all this down. Right? Now I'm curious what you think is happening there. Okay, so the thing I also want to make sure happens here is I'm going to bring in highlights. And this I'm going to do in a pen because specifically her hair is going to be dark, right? And there's a response her hair is having to what's going on around her. Well, so it is and is not sort of a released cut, and that's part of the problem. It's mythological. It's kind of like you don't want to count the version of episode 4, A New Hope. You don't want to count that in as part of canonical releases of episode 4 because it was just really cut up to be stuck on TV. And so there is kind of like a problem specifically with that kind of, I didn't like the way this looked, by the way, that kind of concept. The ABC cut is an anomaly. It's a thing that occurred, but it was never released on DVD. You cannot buy it anywhere. The only place you can even find them is if you go look at the UCLA libraries. And on top of this, wow, the dog is moaning outside. On top of this, that release that was released there, I'm just going to take a look at this and see what I want to do with this, because do I want to overlay? Oh, overlay looks kind of cool, actually. There we go. Yeah, it was only a TV release on ABC in 1984 or something to that effect. And I remember seeing it as well. I mean, the guy online was saying that he remembered seeing it. I too remember seeing something to that effect. But it was only on TV, and it was Nick Meyer was the director of Star Trek II, and they brought him in, told him that you can't have bleeding ears on TV, so you got to cut that out. And somewhere along the line, David Marcus calls Khan a son of a bitch. That has to be cut because it was 1984, and you couldn't say that on TV. And what I mean is like things like that. And then there were a couple of other small changes that he made that were interesting. He took a different take from the turbolift scene where Savick and Kirk are in this turbolift, and she says, "Hold, please." And then Kirk says, "Have you done something with your hair?" And she says, "It's still regulation, Admiral." And yada yada yada. And then she asks about the Kobayashi Maru. He took a different take that was 8 seconds shorter. So, I mean, it's like little things like that. So it's not canonical. When you talk about like the director's cut versus the, I'm going to save this. take the director's cut and you look at the director's cut versus the master cut, the theatrical release, and the director's cut has some things in it that are interesting. It talks about Peter Preston a little bit more, who in the director's cut, we established that Peter Preston is Scotty's sister's youngest son. So it's his nephew, which makes it much more poignant when he ends up dying later on, because he's the one that, give the word, Admiral, is the word given? And he dies and croaks, right? The director's cut also adds a scene that I have never liked, and I wish that Nick Meyer had shot it differently, where they're going, there's a scene where they come back from Regula, and Kirk and crew are starting to head back up, and Spock is with them, and Spock says, "We're inoperable below sea deck." And Kirk says, "What is working around here?" "Not much, Admiral. Best we could do in 3 hours." And they climb up the shaft that goes to the secondary hull in the neck. And in the director's cut, Kirk says, "That boy, he's my son." And Spock says, "Fascinating." And it's just dead. The delivery that Spock gave was dead. And I can tell totally that that's the reason why Nick Meyer cut it, was because that delivery was about as dead as it gets. So, and he wished he'd shot a different version of it, but it's important that Kirk relay to Spock that David is his son. And that's an important loop to be closed. So you have to have that scene. I get it. But it's one of the ones that'd be the first on the cutting room floor if Nick Meyer could get back in there. And that's why it got cut out of the main movie. But it's considered canon that Peter Preston was Scotty's nephew. That's considered canon because it comes from the director's cut. There's also an excised scene, if you watch Star Trek II, when they leave the little shuttle pod heading for the Enterprise in the very beginning. Sulu is sitting at the controls of the shuttle pod. And so Kirk says, "I hate inspections." And Sulu says, "I, for one, am delighted." And then it cuts right there. And he's like mid-word. And when it comes back, he's like, "Time." Right? And there's like a word in there on either side. There actually is audio from that scene. There's no video. The video has not survived. But there's audio that remains. Somebody still saved the audio recording, because back in those days, the film was recorded on one thing and the audio was recorded in a separate location. Somebody saved the film reel, or the audio reel, even though the film is long gone. And there's more in that scene, that travel pod scene. Essentially what Sulu says is, "I, for one, am delighted. Any chance to get back on the Enterprise is a great thing for me." And then Kirk says, "That's right. You got the Excelsior, didn't you?" And McCoy says, "Well, congratulations." And Sulu says, "Yeah, it's great, or something. And then clearly he comes back in at the end there. They cut that out completely. And I'm not sure if that was the suits. It had to have been the suits, because the cut is so bad. I can't imagine Nick Meyer cutting it. You know what I mean? But I think that was doing we don't know whether we're going to make another movie, and let's not set up that Sulu is on a different ship, and let's cut that out. And so they cut it. And I'm not sure whatever happened to it. I don't know. So anyway, interesting stuff to kind of, but again, there isn't a whole lot about Star Trek II that I don't know about. Nothing surprises me. That's one of my, that is it could potentially be my favorite movie of all time. I'm not 100% sure. It's very, very close. Apollo 13's up there in this little cluster of my favorite movies. But yeah, anyway, the guy was trying to say that there's a scene, the argument that he was making was there's a scene early on in the movie when the Reliant attacks the Enterprise the first time. The Reliant strikes the Enterprise right at the torpedo room, right at the bottom of the neck, and then strikes again along the engineering section, which takes out then across the warp core. And the idea, of course, is that they're taking out the torpedoes, the phasers, and the warp core, the warp engines. That's a double hit right across there. I don't know who those people are. Massachusetts. I've never gotten a call from Massachusetts. Anyway, so the point that the guy was trying to make was right after that, Kirk and Spock walk across the bridge, and Spock points to a graphic which shows different views of the Enterprise, and there are hits that are blinking on the other side of the ship. On the other side of the saucer, there are hits on the saucer that's showing, and there are hits on the other side of the secondary hull, when clearly Khan only struck there. And the argument he was making was that he had seen in the ABC cut other hits, that Khan had struck the saucer and struck parts of the other side of the hull that matches that. And I was saying they didn't ever do that. That never happened. That was, it was just the fact that they built the sets with the blinky lights in November of 1980. And, they put that into the blinky light system in 1980, just after they'd wrapped motion picture. And by the time they got to 1981, the end of 1981, they were into post-production on all of the models and stuff like that. And it just was 11 months difference. And by then, people had changed their minds about what got hit on the ship. And he was trying to corroborate it by saying that the damage on the Enterprise looks completely different when she pulls into space dock and Star Trek 3. And, and that's just really just the fact that they had to gussy up the 8-foot model instead of the 11-foot model because they were prepping to blow up the model. And so they didn't want to destroy the 11-foot model, and they wanted to destroy only the 8-foot model. And so that's kind of where everything went down. So they had to redress the 8-foot model and then stuff like that. So, and of course the artist, I don't know if they just didn't watch the movie. I don't know what happened. Anyway, doesn't matter. The TLDR on all of this is, that's where I was getting to this argument was, it's like, there's not a whole lot of Star Trek 2 that I don't know. And so I would be shocked to find out that the ABC cut had anything more in it, but it didn't. The ABC cut didn't really. It was just a recut of Star Trek 2 so that you didn't have bleeding Chekhov ear. And they cut the SETI eel scene so it's not quite as traumatic. When Khan puts the SETI eels into their ears and puts it in the helmets and sticks the helmets on, and the eel crawls into his ear. Which, by the way, the SETI eel. It's our SETI eel. I love our SETI eel. Anyway, yep. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to go to lunch. I'm hungry. So there you go. I hope you guys are all hungry too. And you got like 15 extra minutes of an in-depth commentary on Star Trek 2. I apologize to both of you for that. Star Trek 2 is my favorite movie. I've seen it so many times. And it was actually kind of funny when my wife at the time was my girlfriend. Yep, Star Trek Geek Tank, which I'm not sure if we're doing Star Trek tonight or whether we're doing Geek Tank. I don't think anyone knows for sure. Kind of hope it's not Star Trek, though, because I'm not ready. I have no idea what I'm doing. And since we've gone back into the universe where it's me, I've got to be prepped for the game tonight because I'll be GMing. So kind of hoping it's not me. I hope it's not Star Trek. I mean, I know that that's kind of mean because I know you want Star Trek, and I apologize. So anyway, goodbye, my dear friends. I will see you all tomorrow. We'll have Pepper here, and we'll talk about what we were doing with our weeks and stuff like that. And until then, have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday, and remember to keep your eyes on the stars. Bye-bye. Computer, good night.